English language, like many of the approximately 2,700 spoken and written languages in the world, is composed of a mixture of other linguistic influences. Specifically, the linguistic influences upon English come in the form of how we construct the words that compose our spoken and written language. The three main linguistic models of word construction that constitute the English language are Latinate word construction, Anglo-Saxon word construction, and Greek word construction. Here is the English language in pie chart form. You can see that Latinate word construction constitutes 55% of our language. In other words, a little over 1 out of every 2 words in our language is based upon Latinate word construction. Anglo-Saxon word construction occupies 25%. That is 1 out of every 4 words in our language. However, Anglo-Saxon word construction occupies nearly 100% of words learned through the 3rd grade. Therefore, knowledge of Anglo-Saxon word construction forms a crucial foundation for reading the English language. Greek word construction constitutes 11% of our language. That's approximately 1 out of every 10 words. But please note, the majority of vocabulary words found in science and mathematics are of Greek origin. Studying Latinate word construction is not only a worthwhile endeavor, it's crucial to the academic foundation of students. Students will first encounter Latinate word construction approximately in the 4th grade, and they will see it for the rest of their academic career. In order to be successful, students are going to need a background in roots, prefixes, assimilated prefixes, suffixes, and connectives. Latinate word construction may appear in 5 forms: prefix and a root and a suffix, a prefix, a root, and a suffix, a prefix, a root, connective, and a suffix, or a root, connective, and a suffix. Let's briefly look at each of these. An example of a prefix plus a root: we have the prefix re, which means back or again. The root port, which means to carry. Combine them, we get report, which means to carry back. Example of root plus suffix: we have the Latinate root mote, which means to move, plus the suffix shun, which means the result of an action. We combine them, we get the word motion, which means the result of moving. For an example of prefix, root, and suffix, we have the prefix trans, which means across, the Latinate root mis, which means to send, and the suffix shun, which means the result of an action. We combine them, and we get transmission, which means the result of sending across. For prefix, root, connective, and suffix, we have the prefix ir, a form of the assimilated prefix in, which means no or not. We have the root reg, which means straight, our Latin connective ul, and ar, which means that which is. We combine them, we get irregular, which means that which is not straight. An example of root connective plus a suffix: we have the Latinate root grad, which means to step, our connective u, and all, which means characterized by. We combine them and we get gradual, which means characterized by a step. The most critical component of Latinate word construction is the Latinate root. Any word which contains a root must revolve around the concept of the meaning of that root. Let's go back to our example, report. The root is port, which means to carry. Any word that contains this root must revolve around the concept of to carry. For example, import, transportation, opportunity, disproportionate, insupportable. They all have the same root. Each of these 5 words on your screen revolves around the concept of to carry. To develop a solid foundation in English vocabulary, students are going to need exposure to Latinate roots, prefixes, assimilated prefixes, suffixes, and connectives. Anglo-Saxon word construction lays the foundation for reading skills in the English code. This sequence is a classic example. Please note that it ends with a consonant, which means, by definition, that the syllable should be closed. This vowel should be short. The A should say a. This sequence should say was. But you and I know that it says was. It is non-phonetic. It is not pronounced the way that it's seen, nor is it spelled the way that it's spoken. Anglo-Saxon word construction has given us our spelling rules, like the CVC doubling rule and the CVC doubling rule extended, the long spelling rule, the Y rule, the silent E rule, the FLS doubling rule, and the somewhat confusing vowel teams. Anglo-Saxon word construction may appear in 5 forms. You may have a base word plus a base word, a prefix plus base word, a base word plus a suffix, or a prefix, base word, and a suffix. Let's briefly look at each of these. For an example of a base word, we have ship, flow, house, and knife. I draw your attention to the consonant digraph SH in ship. I also draw your attention to the consonant blend FL in flow and the silent K in knife. Or we may have a base word plus a base word. This is called a compound word. For example, sail and boat equals sailboat, cat and fish equals catfish, or hard and wood equals hardwood. We may have a prefix and a base word. For example, mid and night equals midnight, with and hold equals withhold, or for and get equals forget. Base word and a suffix. For example, get and ing equals getting, kind and ness equals kindness, or wood and n equals wooden. For our prefix base word and suffix, we have under plus right and in equals underwritten, over plus sleep plus ing equals oversleeping, and lastly, be plus wilder plus d equals bewildered. To develop a solid foundation in the English code, students are going to need early on exposure to base words, derivatives, spelling rules, vowel teams, blends and digraphs, and because Anglo-Saxon word construction gives us most of our non-phonetic words, strong sight word vocabulary. Greek word construction, although it only comprises 11% of our language, is where we get most of our advanced vocabulary in mathematics and science. Students begin to encounter Greek word construction in the early stages of the middle school, and it will extend throughout the rest of their academic careers. In order to be successful, students are going to need exposure to Greek combining forms and the connective O. Again, most of our advanced science terminology or mathematic terminology comes from Greek word construction. Here are 4 classic examples: biology, geometry, geography, and trigonometry. Greek word construction may appear in 2 forms. combining form plus combining form, or combining form plus a connective O plus a combining form. Let's briefly look at each of these. As an example of combining form plus combining form, we have mon, which means one, arc, which means ruler. Combine them, we get monarch, which is a solitary ruler. We have tele, which means distant, scope, which means to see. Combine them, we get telescope. A telescope allows us to see things that are at a distance. We have poly, which means many, and gon, which means angle. We combine them, we get polygon. A polygon is a shape with many angles. For combining form plus connective O plus combining form, we have therm, which means heat, O, and meter, which means measure. Combine them, we get thermometer. A thermometer measures heat. We have mon, which means one, O, and lith, which means stone. We get monolith, which is one giant stone. Or we have orth, which means straight, plus the connective O, plus dox, which means belief. Combine them, we get orthodox, straight beliefs. In order to be successful in the more advanced mathematical and scientific terms, students are going to need exposure to Greek combining forms and the connective O. Clearly, mastering the English code is no small task. In order to successfully accomplish this, students will need the English Code Language Training System.